Your student there with you?
Hi, good morning. Yes.
Nice. Nice. I am so excited to get started. I don't want to wait another minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Oh, I don't want to disable the screen sharing. Okay, thank you, Ms. Haynes. I see your comment there, but I need to be able to share my screen now. It says that the host has disabled the screen sharing, so I'm not sure if when I gave you permission to.
I got you, Dr. Robinson. Hold on a second.
Okay.
How about that?
Let's see here. There we go. Thank you.
No worries.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm so excited for what we have planned for you all. I am Teresa Robinson. Some of you know me, some of you do not know me. So just a little bit about myself. I am a trained science educator, and I hold a degree in biology and secondary education. So I was trained to be a secondary science teacher, and I was licensed grades 6 through 12. And I've been working in higher ed now for about 15 years, which is amazing. And what I do is I provide professional development for teachers. But here where I'm sitting today is in my office at Elmhurst University, where I prepare teachers who are going to be STEM teachers, along with social studies teachers, English teachers, art, music, and PE. But my passion is STEM education. And so we created this, and when I say we, I mean the Black Educational Advocacy Coalition created this STEM learning series to support families during the pandemic. So you're here today to have an orientation for those parents who have signed their children up for the series, and an informational for those of you who want a little more information before you decide to go ahead and sign your student up. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the mission and vision. We're going to discuss best practices in STEM education, and that's the informational piece. I want to make sure that our people know what are the best practices that should and can happen at home as well as in school, so that you can advocate for your child. And then we're going to have some of an overview of the courses that we are offering you all here today. I will go through the presentation, and towards the end, we will have an opportunity for you all to answer any questions that you might have about the program, or if you want to ask me questions as an expert. So there will be time for questions and answers, and I want to make sure that you all get the best out of what I have to offer and what we have put together as a team, as an organization. So here's our mission. You can read it for yourself, but basically our mission is to advocate for matters affecting Black students and educators. That's our mission. And there was about a group of 3 of us who got together, who all work in education, and decided that we wanted to build our own organization. Most of us have been working within institutions as outsiders for some time now, and we wanted to create something that we could center the Black child and the Black family and all families, because we believe that when we center the Black child, everyone benefits. Our vision is to improve the school experiences of Black students and educators. And so that's what we see for the future and what we're going to do. And this program, this series, is one of our first ventures into doing that. We've been doing presentations at conferences, professional development, and now we want to reach families, those who need us and need our gifts and talents. So here is what we are offering. I am because we are. And we believe that. And so when we went in quarantine for the pandemic, I got lots of calls from friends, families, text messages about how to support their child, how to support their children during online learning, especially for science and math. And some families were feeling frustrated about their ability. And so I was coaching some families and friends and messaging them about how you can do that. So I went to my colleagues and said, you know, there's a need out there. And they answered that need and said, yes, let's do this. And then I presented that to the board. And then one of our members said, yes, we're looking for some things like this to support families. And so that is our main intention, is to support families as we are in schools right now and parents are supporting their learners, how they can help their child at home with all the things that they're going on socially, emotionally, politically, and economically. How can we support those families? And specifically in the narrow area of STEM. I know, and most of us know, that most schools have STEM initiatives. We hear it all the time. Sometimes we think it's at the expense of arts and reading, but actually it's not. But most schools have a STEM initiative, but what's unique about what we are offering is that we are looking at something that will help students understand their identities in STEM education. That's different. We are also looking at creative thinking, because I know that an important aspect of science and math is creativity. So we don't sacrifice art and music for math and science. It is a critical component, because all scientists, all mathematicians you have to be creative. And there's a focus that we are putting forth with critical thinking as well as mathematical thinking, which is a little different than the focus we see on computation. Computation is, can you solve this problem? Can you add? Can you multiply? Can you divide? But there's actually a thought process and a critical thinking process and a reasoning that goes on behind that computation. And we are focusing, and we've proposed things that in this program that will put that thinking process forward and teach children how to go through those thinking processes. And that's different. We also want to make sure that science as well as math, but specifically science, is taught as a cultural accomplishment. Now, that I don't believe is happening in an institutional collective way. And that's something that makes what we're offering in this STEM learning series unique. We will convey, and we do convey, faith in students' STEM abilities and their attentions, because we know that it's a developmental process. So that faith is very important to convey to our students. And oftentimes in some situations in schools, they're not always getting that. And so we want to support parents in understanding that we are going to be here for you. We're going to be here for your students, because we're going to honor their intentions. So when we're teaching science and STEM and any subject, but particularly science and STEM subjects, all of us bring what we call cultural capital to the classroom. And sometimes that cultural capital is not acknowledged. And sometimes institutions, some teachers, I will always say some teachers because there's always exceptions, but what we're looking at is what I see and what I've seen and my colleagues have seen as a systematic problem. And it's a deficit perspective that our children have something to overcome that impacts why they're not achieving. But what you see here on the screen are examples of how our culture can be used as capital in the classroom. They experience things, they're not inferior, their differences are something that should be captured in the classroom. And so what you see on the screen here is a picture actually of my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandfather outside of a shed. And our children have families, and you have families that they're coming from. And there's been a culture that's passed down to them that's prior to even us being here in America that should be capitalized on and will be capitalized on in this learning series. There's also an ofrenda here that was at an event for a celebration that I went to, and the sister had created this ofrenda. And so the children came by and were asked to stand in front of this and to connect with their ancestors. The other picture is a picture of a book about an African woman called Seeds of Change. It is a picture book, but it tells the story of science from a cultural perspective. If you haven't seen that book, I recommend that book. It's a wonderful book, and I think this lady won a Nobel Prize for planting trees all across Africa. But there's a story that our children bring to the classroom that should be honored and used, and that's what we're proposing that we're going to do, and that what you should see. If you don't see it in the classrooms, that's okay. You should know that your families bring a culture that you can actually capitalize on. So at that bottom of that picture, there, one of the things that has been passed down is problem solving. And problem solving is an essential component of science and math. And so we want to capitalize that. So you'll see in the other side of the slide, there's a quote by Sonia Nieto, who does lots of work on cultural competence. Sonia Nieto is a Puerto Rican woman scholar, and she talks about the deficit perspective. And so when you are in classrooms or speaking to teachers sometimes, and the perspective is that of something to overcome, as opposed to something that is an asset. So here are some of the most important aspects of teaching science and math. And what I like for you to focus on are the words in bold. So what we know is important is showing the broad importance of STEM, the broad importance, not the discrete facts, while those are important, but there's a broader importance. There's key organizing concepts. We'll talk a little bit more about that. How science and math can be a key tool for solving problems. We don't just learn science and math just to gather knowledge in our heads. It's for a reason. And it's a tool that we can use as we navigate through life. So we also know that science and math for our children should be, and all children should be, connected to their interests as well as their life experiences. So at the bottom there's, just for your understanding, I'm sure some of you know this, but just so that you know that there's 4 domains in science. It's the physical science. That's the world that we can touch, right? That's the chemistry and physics. We can't always touch chemistry, but it manifests itself in matter. There's the life sciences. That's the biology, it's the environmental science. There's earth space science, right? Learning about the solar system is an example of that. And then the next generation science standards, which hadn't been updated for almost 20 years, started to integrate engineering and technology, which is what our children are going to need to go into the future, whether they are going to be scientists or not. That is not the goal. The goal is that they are prepared for the next generation. And engineering and principles of design and how to solve a problem are important. We see them all the time. They're engineering challenges. And then the applications of science. Moving on, the connection of science and math to society and personal concerns. Are your children personally concerned about the safety of vaccines, the fires that are happening, hurricanes? Those are things that we want to make sure that children understand when they hear these topics or parents discussing them, that they can make those connections. And then next, there's this idea that children can construct viable arguments. Now, that seems like, oh, well, they argue with us as parents all the time, but we want them to have evidence for their arguments. And we want them to be able to construct a viable argument for a line of reasoning. And then next, we have building models. So there's building models in math, and those models are able to represent patterns, recognize patterns in order to solve a problem. And then in science, it's simply as something as, and you probably can't see back there on my shelf there, but there's a little model of the skeletal system in a little tube. But how do we build a model, right, to explain something? How do we build a model to represent a construct, right? And then models with mathematics and looking for those patterns. Now at the bottom of the screen here, you have some of the domains of math, and I say that there's some of them because there were many more. But what is important for parents to understand, and before they get overwhelmed with, I can't help my child, you can help your child, and we're here to support you with that, is there's number sense, that's just understanding numbers. There's measurement and data. This is across science and math. Ratios and proportions, which will come up in the math games class if you've signed your child up for that. Let me make sure that no one is waiting to get into our session here, and I'm not leaving anyone out. I think we're okay. And then there's expressions and equations. So let me talk to you a little bit about how and why we are integrating literacy and reading and writing into our series, because there's three types of language. There's the home language, there's social language, and then there's academic language, right? The home language is the language that your children use at home with their families. It's the language you use with your abuelas, abuelos, your grandmother. Then there's the social language. That's the language that your children use with their siblings and their friends that they may not use at home. Sometimes it's peppered with slang and terms that we may not or may not relate to as elders, if you will. And then there's the academic language. Let me make sure that we are good here. Okay. So the academic language is what they are being asked to use in schools to make meaning and understanding of the content. So what is academic language? Academic language is oral and it's written. It's for academic purposes. It may not, and oftentimes it's not in alignment with their home language or their social language. It's the language that will help them develop and express their STEM understandings. It's the vocabulary, if you will. It's a little more than vocabulary, but that's the way that I can explain it. It's like the vocabulary. So at home, you may not be speaking of osmosis and mitosis and number sense, but at school, they will be. I know that to learn the academic language of a subject for a young adolescent or child, it can take up to 5 to 10 years to develop. So if your child is starting kindergarten, we're not expecting them and should not expect them to be able to use that academic language. But in addition to that, social language, the language that they use in their groups, can be a foundation for academic language and learning. Now, a lot of people get a little bent out of shape and they say, are you suggesting that we use slang to teach? And I'm not, and slang is different than dialect. But it's that showing that a child can use the language of their home or their social language to express their understandings, and that is valued because it is the foundation for them to get their academic language. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what the courses are. I'm so excited about what we've planned, and two of our teachers are here with us today. One is Miss Fumi Ajay, and she's going to teach the kindergarten through second grade class titled Mathematical Patterns in Nature. And what's so exciting about this class that she's planned is that it integrates science, math, and reading. And although we are doing these courses online, she has planned a field day and she has scheduled it for October 31st. And you all are going to meet in the park if you can. There will be more information about that. So there's a field day to explore how we see patterns in nature. Fumi, is there anything that you would like to say to the parents and families about your course? They can see here the materials that will not be included in the kit.
Mhm. Hello, everyone. I am really excited to be teaching this class with kindergarten through second grade. Just a little bit about my background. I have been a science instructional coach for teachers. I did that for about 3 years, actually in Hyde Park at Bret Harte Elementary School when I worked for Chicago Public Schools. I've also been an education consultant for a number of years. I spent 4 years working in Malaysia on a large school transformation project with their government schools. And I'm currently the director of K-8 mathematics for Niles Township. We have a partnership with our feeder schools, and I work for the high school district. And so with this particular program, we're going to spend a lot of time using our observational skills, developing that world language that's really important for students, and just looking at patterns in nature and really understanding how one of my favorite topics is fractals, and something that is very basic in patterns, and students will have an opportunity to dive deeper into that. So in terms of the things that they will need at home, they will have to go outside and get some leaves because we'll be sketching and looking at those patterns deeper. So that's one of the requirements that they will have to do: get outside, literally get outside and look around and pick up some stuff off the ground. So we'll talk a little bit more about what is needed as we go along.
Thank you, Fumi. So each student, what is unique about and why I encourage so many families to spread the word, because we created this with the child in mind. And I don't think that a lot of schools during remote learning are able to do what we're doing, which is to provide hands-on science. So when you register your student for a course, they're going to actually receive a kit in a small box or an envelope with the materials that they're going to use. So as Fumi suggested, although we are going to be online, it will not be minds off and simply staring at a screen. So this is some of the information that you'll need in order to, and these are basic crayons, pencils, things like that. But the kit will include some things for them to actually be engaged and hands-on in the lessons. The second class or course that I'm also excited that we've been discussing and developing is a math games. It's for grades, middle school students. And Miss Ashley O'Donnell, who is a math major, who is studying to be a math educator here at Elmhurst University, has signed on. She's very excited. She's going to not teach how to play a game, but one thing that we know about math games is that they encourage problem solving. So if you have a Monopoly game and you're playing Monopoly with your children, you are supporting their mathematical problem solving. You are supporting their ability to strategize, counting money, giving back change if they are the banker, right? There's a quantitative reasoning that has to go on. I have this much money. Can I afford this? Very real world application. Most games that involve dice, if you have a game, there's probability. So in this kit, they'll receive a pair of dice. They'll receive a small pair of playing cards you can see here, because when we roll dice in a game, we're actually engaging in probability. And if you remember from one of the earlier slides, probability and ratios is one of the domains of mathematics. But we want them to understand, so this isn't a course simply about playing games, but it's understanding the math concepts behind that. So Miss Ashley O'Donnell is here with us. Ashley, would you like to say hello to the families and introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name's Ashley. Like Dr. Robinson said, I am a student at Elmhurst University. I've been recently working on this course and developing it, so I have a lot of fun things for the students to learn, and I'm really excited to be on board teaching this course.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm excited for you to be here. Ashley, she's wonderful. She's so engaging and caring, and that's what we want. That's why I wanted you all to understand that we have educators who are actually caring about the development of your child. And then there's me. I am going to, and I'm preparing to teach a class titled Black History Through Science for grades 7 through 9. And one thing that I noticed is that in preparing this, I am a secondary educator and I do professional development for grades lower than that. But I designed this for grades 7 through 9, and then I start getting questions. So if there's someone who is interested in this course, I can teach it a little lower, but I want to keep it here for now. But a lot of parents, the questions that I got in inboxes and emails was about, what about the 3rd through 5th graders? And so we haven't left them out. It's just that we weren't able to plan something specifically for that grade with the resources that we have. So if you are interested in this course, I can modify it. I'm going to keep it this way so you can inquire and ask about this course. I've planned a course that goes across the disciplines in science. The first 3 weeks are about biology, but specifically cell biology, understanding the structure and function of a cell, but specifically the cell membrane and how cells replicate. That's important in understanding how cancerous cells replicate. And so we are going to read excerpts of the life of Henrietta Lacks that was made into a movie, but also written by Rebecca Skloot, that tells the story of how vulnerable populations are used and our bodies are used for the benefit of science, and how poor people have been used. And there's many stories of that. So we want to talk about medical apartheid while learning about the biology of a cell, which is its own subject in science. It's a biology, but there are people who simply study cell biology, and some of the scientists who've done the work around that. The second portion goes into chemistry, understanding matter, and the focus will be on Percy Julian, who did a lot of his work in Illinois. We know we have schools in Illinois named after Percy Julian in Oak Park. He was one of the first residents of Oak Park as an African-American male. But it's important to study the history of these scientists as a cultural accomplishment, so students can see their identities represented, but more importantly, that they can understand that there's a certain perseverance that most of these scientists and all people went through. And so not everyone is born with this genius. There's an interest, there's a motivation. And when we study the stories of these people, especially someone like Percy Julian, we'll see that he was born the grandchild of a slave, but he had an interest in the natural world around him. But he wasn't offered jobs, even though he had to, and all of the things that he had to go through. So we tell these stories of science and accomplishment to encourage our children. And then there's others like Shirley Ann Jackson, my favorite, who is George Washington Carver, who was known as the scientist for the people. And then lastly, we go through a couple sessions on environmental science, and then looking at environmental justice. So again, science and math for a purpose. So here are some of the expectations for parents. Log into classes weekly with your learner. Make sure that they're ready to participate. Use the mute function only if there's background noise. I'm in a very quiet environment. And if they're in a quiet environment, they are free to have their voices unmuted so that the conversations can flow. You should ask questions. Your children should ask questions, whatever questions you have. Students should take notes during class. In the math courses, they will have time to take notes and journals. I know that the kindergarten through 2nd grade class, in their kit, they're going to have a journal. It's called their math journal. You should contact the program director. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach me at the BEAC of Illinois at gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns about the classroom or anything, you can direct those to me, and then I will work with the parent or the teacher to answer any of those. We want to make sure that they are free to teach, and I will do all of the solution and problem solving to support your learner. So here's our responsibility. We are going to ensure that all students, no matter their gender, no matter their race, culture, sexual orientation, have access and equal access to learning STEM and high quality STEM, and that they're able to progress academically while having their identity centered. And that doesn't always happen in schools. So at this time, I'm going to have closing remarks by one of our members of BEAC. And before we transition to her, I just want you all to know that we appreciate you having an interest in your students' future learning. This is designed for us and by us. And you should register your learner, share the word, and sign up here. So now we're going to have some closing remarks by Paige Williams, and then I'm going to answer any questions you all may have. Paige?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Like Teresa mentioned, my name is Paige Williams. I'm one of the founding members of
Can't hear you so well, Paige.
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
It's a little better for me. Can everyone hear Paige? You can just chime in the...
Or do like thumbs up or
yeah, thumbs up or
if
something
you
like
hear
that.
me. Well, yes, as Teresa mentioned, I'm a BEAC member as well. A lot of my experience is related to the policy side of things, but I'm also the child of 2 public school educators, so I'm very passionate about education and community-centered education. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for coming and participating in the course. This is our first course, but definitely not the last that you'll see from BEAC. And I just wanted to take a moment to touch on how, oh, Don, can you hear me now?
It's a little low. It's a little low.
Oh no.
And maybe it's the microphone. I don't know.
Let me try. Is this better now?
It's a little better.
A little better? Okay. I'm just going to move it very, very close to my mouth, and hopefully that works. And I will also project. But so one of the things that I wanted to touch on was just how this course is just one of the building blocks for BEAC. And we are excited that you're joining us and building up to this moment, because part of what we wanted to do is what Teresa touched on in terms of giving more opportunities to support our community, more opportunities to have children who are often underrepresented in the STEM field see themselves and be welcomed and affirmed. But the other part that we want to provide through this experience too is supporting parents, caregivers, community members, or whatever capacity that you come to us today, support you in being advocates for your child's education. We recognize that a lot of times, especially in our communities or even in other groups or demographics, we aren't always made to feel welcome in the educational space. I can recount several times where parents have shared with me not feeling comfortable when they do try to engage in their child's educational journey. And not all school districts, but sometimes there may be an unwelcoming environment from the school or the teacher or the principal that you're required to interact with for in order to educate your child and help be an advocate on their educational journey. So I say all that to say one of our aims is to not just support the child, but support the family in starting on that educational journey, and make sure that when you interact with BEAC, no matter what role you're playing in your student's life, that you feel empowered by us, that you feel affirmed by us, that you know your cultural background and your cultural capital is not just welcomed here, but it will be centered as a part of you and your students' journey, their educational journey, and know that we want this to be your organization too, in a sense. We want it to be all of our organizations because, like Teresa mentioned, we consider all the children as a part of our community, and we want you to know that you're welcome here, you will be affirmed here, and all that cultural capital that we bring to classrooms will be centered here and welcome. So thank you again for coming, and we're excited to have you.
Thank you, Paige. I think we had a question, a hand raised by Deonis. Deonis, would you like to ask your question?
Sorry, I was just saying I was interested in getting more information about, if that course would ever be adjusted for younger kids, but that was just me. Hi.
So do you mean the Black History course?
Yes.
Yes, that's something that I am considering. So if you want to sign your child up, please do. I will, and I can modify things. Actually, the unit on Percy Julian was created through the Chicago Math Science Initiative, and it actually spans from 4th grade through 12th grade. So I have the materials and the know-how to adjust it. So if you're interested in that course, sign your child up for it. We can do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do you all have?
Teresa, I have a comment.
This is our president. Hi, Patrick. Dr. Wright.
Hey, I really enjoyed the presentation. I heard the majority of it, really great, proud of you. But something that you said earlier about cultural capital, and one of the things that, I just use an analogy, is that a lot of the time, it's like if you take a picture, like let's say you take a family picture or a class picture. Let's say you're graduating from high school, you take a class picture. And when you take that picture and the picture is developed, normally the first person you're going to look for is who?
Yourself.
Obviously, you want to see yourself, right? And that's been the issue in public education. Our students have not been able to see themselves, and most of our teachers, of course, are non-minority female, or the majority. So I'm really appreciative of these type of this STEM initiative with a focus on learning science, also learning Black history, because students have not been seeing themselves. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Patrick is the president and the actual person who brought us together to create this organization. So thank you to Patrick for supporting us and creating this this venue for us. So the organization, we are not necessarily interested in profiting per se. We are asking that you register as a parent member of BEAC, and you get the benefits of that, which you can see on the website. And so we're just asking for you to register in that way. But I also like to give an opportunity for Ms. Kimberly Haynes to give her closing remarks. She is from the Lions Club, who has decided to support this initiative, and they are the ones who are helping to support us financially to bring the kits to your children and families. So Kimberly.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Robinson. I did not expect to give comments, but I do appreciate you offering me this last couple of seconds. So good morning, everyone. As Dr. Robinson mentioned, my name is Kimberly Haynes, and I am a member of Lions Clubs International, as well as a staff member for our foundation. And we are really excited. The Lions Clubs does a lot of work around social and emotional learning. We have an evidence-based program called Lions Quest. And I'll just be honest, we're really excited to support the work that Dr. Robinson is doing through BEAC and bringing this program to some of the students that we're looking to support in the southern suburbs of Cook County. I think that it is an excellent resource. We know that with the impact of COVID, families that are maybe in different situations from the children that we service are doing some things such as creating learning pods and are able to really give their students a different level of support during this crisis. So I am, I really am appreciative of the fact that you all came together to address the needs of our students. And it is an extreme pleasure to be able to support this, this program and to support the students. So I really just a heartfelt thank you. I am one of those people who I am tasked with homeschooling two grandchildren. And so the struggles, regardless, even if you are educated and have some of these backgrounds, we're not teachers. And so the ability to bring this to our students is not only timely, but I think that it really has a pathway to being groundbreaking. So I appreciate you all for coming together to take on this task, and Dr. Robinson for you being part of this great adventure. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited about the call that we put out to the community. We know that we are our own solution. We have everything that we need within our community, within our villages, within our families to solve our problems. And so I want to thank you all for being here on a Saturday morning. But if you have any other questions, the link for the registration has been put in the chat room. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Most of you know where to find me. Thank you, Dawn, for creating all of the wonderful visuals, and everyone who's been involved. Sherrod, Mama Cha, do you have any questions?
Yes, one quick one, and thank you to everyone who's involved. What numbers are you looking for in each class?
Good question. Well, we're looking to support as many students as we can.
Okay. Don't want you to be overwhelmed.
Right, we don't, so I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. We originally planned for 30 students. When I created this or had this idea and took it to my board, one of the board members who isn't with us here today said, I know some people that may be able to help us. That's how Ms. Haynes and the Lions Club came and got involved. But as we approach the actual start date, which is the week of the 21st, I think we have 9 days to start. There is some logistics. There is the ordering of materials. There is the assembling of the pack kits and mailing of them. And so without having exact numbers, we are planning for those who've already registered and for those who might come, but I would say we probably would cut it off at, I don't want to cut us off, but we would probably cut it off at 20. I think that each class would be capable of hosting 10 right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just to give you some definitives. Are there any other questions or comments before we sign off? All right, well, Ms. O'Donnell, thank you for answering the call. Ms. Ajay, thank you for answering the call to be a teacher and believing in this, and all of you for having an interest in your students learning and joining us. So I'm gonna bid you all adieu, and I hope to see many of us in the classes as we start. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Walston. I'm gonna hang on. You all are free to leave. I'm gonna hang on for just a couple minutes for anyone who might have a question. You're welcome. Ms. Haynes, I've made some, if you want to stop recording, that is the